Well, New York City Mayor Eric Adams says that it is time to get serious about the overflow of migrants entering the United States.
We have been treating this major shift in human movement globally like a small cold, when in fact it is a major flu.
During his trip through Latin America, the mayor met with the Foreign Minister of Ecuador. Mayor Adams also traveled to Mexico, Colombia, and Panama before returning home. And joining us now is Bishop Mark Seitz of the Diocese of El Paso, Texas, and the chairman of the USCCB's Committee on Migration. Your Excellency, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it. The topic of migration certainly seems to be a hot-button topic in the United States and is even causing a divide. However, Catholic social teaching has been rather clear on its stance on the issue. Can you talk to us about that?
Yes, well, thank you very much for having me. And you're right. Catholic social teaching, of course, is just an elaboration of what we find in the gospel. As a matter of fact, for those who went to Mass today or read today's gospel reading, we have a pretty good example of Jesus' teaching. The question comes to Jesus, who is my neighbor? And then he gives the parable of the Good Samaritan. So that is the basis for everything we do. As Catholic Christians, we try to set aside some of our own, inbuilt kind of fears of the person that we don't know so that we can do what Jesus has called us to do. And we find that when we take the risk, if you will, and follow him, that very often there are great blessings in that experience.
Yeah, and St. Pope John Paul II said that we should defend against, the unjust restriction of migration and give attention to the rights of migrants, even those doing so illegally. That being said, how do we adhere to that when the volume of migrants and their needs really seem to be stretching many cities thin? We heard from Mayor Eric Adams in New York, and then also the mayor of your city in El Paso recently said that they've reached the breaking point. So how do we find a balance?
Well, we have to do things smart, right? We're not going to serve people well if we're not really trying to think about big picture issues and trying to adapt the flow in such a way that we can do it in an orderly manner and that people can go to places that have expressed a real need for people to help them in various jobs that are going unfilled. We've been simply sending people to places like New York that have, as they say, reached their capacity and not thinking about how we might help migrants find places where, in fact, they will have a better reception, an opportunity to work, and to live, which is all they really, really want.
Yeah, and Your Excellency, can you tell us, from your perspective, the situation in El Paso and also how the church is helping there?
One thing to remember about migration is that it is a constantly changing flow. There are surges, and then there are moments and times when the numbers go way down. You notice you don't hear about them in the news again for a number of months. And right now, we may be seeing a little bit of a diminution of the flow. Today, there were something like, yesterday, 700 and some encounters along the border near us. And that sounds like a lot, but it's really quite a bit down from the time just a couple of weeks ago when it was more like 2,000. So we think we may be seeing a lessening of that flow even right now.
And for those who may not know, we only have about a minute left or so, but curious, what role does the USCCB play in helping to shape or maybe support legislation on issues such as migration?
Well, we take the gospel and the church's social teaching, and we attempt to address the present day situations in light of that gospel. And so we try to present principles, we form consciences. We don't suggest legislation, but when we see legislation that might either go contrary to that or fulfill it, we express that to our legislators.
Your Excellency, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. We really appreciate it. God bless.
You're welcome. God bless all of you.